In the future, we know that Amazon will be working on a Mass Effect show of some kind. Live action, animated, no one knows for sure. Regardless, it's a well-known fact that video game properties tend to suck when adapted into a show or movie. This is more often than not because those who are tasked with making the show or movie aren't really fans of the original property, yet are tasked with adapting it to a mainstream audience. They lack a personal connection with the property and adapt what they think everyone wants to see, not what fans want to see. That results in strange tonal issues and weird plot points that don't really make sense in the context of the game. After the whole thing is said and done, all that's left is a hollow shell of what once was. That, or they purposefully make bad video game movies to exploit tax laws that allow donors to write off income taxes in the event of a box office flop. Regardless, that is all besides the point. Go check out my Halo vs. Arcane video for more on the subject of passion versus, well, shit. Today, what I want to talk about is more of the narrative potential of the Mass Effect show, a narrative potential that wasn't presented in the original trilogy. I want to propose an idea I've had percolating in my head since my last playthrough of the series about a year or two ago. An idea that literally lets everyone have their cake and eat it too. Now, don't kill me, but I think the best way to approach the Mass Effect show is by making Shepard a twin. I'm talking about John and Jane Shepard. No, don't click away, don't click away. Allow me to explain. Mass Effect is a universe-sprawling role-playing game, meaning my choice, your choice, her choice, and his choice are most likely not the same. The issue with adapting an RPG like this is, well, you'll have to upset some people because my Shepard didn't do that, your Shepard didn't do that, her Shepard didn't do that, and his Shepard didn't do that. See what I mean? This issue isn't really presented in most video game adaptations because most, if not all of those adaptations have been narrative-driven games, not choice-based games. And if they were choice-based games, they center around an event that wasn't in the games. Just look at the leaks for the upcoming Amazon Fallout series. Based on those leaked images, I assume that's what they're doing. Or for a more current reference, look at Edgerunners. That takes place a year before the events of Cyberpunk 2077. When you have a game like Mass Effect, you will most definitely step on some toes when adapting the narrative. So how do we circumvent that issue? Well, one way is by doing what I previously mentioned, telling an in-universe story that's not necessarily based on the main events from the games. For instance, I would love to see a First Contact War show, or hell, even a series surrounding the exploits of young Anderson. Or maybe adapt one of the books. I'd argue most fans haven't read them, so they could have a lot of leeway with changes as opposed to changing aspects of the games. But despite all of that, I still think that's a cop-out. I would love to see that, but I would also love to see Shepard's story more. So the question becomes, how do we bypass that issue? How do we tell a story about a game with multiple choices, yet one character? Well, you cut the character in half. You have fraternal twins John and Jane Shepard. The thing is, to my knowledge, this idea of splitting the protagonist could only really work with the Mass Effect series, and I believe, if done right, most fans would be okay with it. You already have a binary morality system in the game, Renegade and Paragon, and most choices in the series come down to a binary option. Do you do this, or do you do that? Endings notwithstanding. Now, obviously this does present some narrative issues, such as do both Shepards interact with the beacon, do they both become specters, who romances who, and do they both die in Mass Effect 2, and so much more. I think I have a solution to all of that, and I believe this splitting of the Shepards could fix one of Mass Effect 3's worst elements. So allow me to pitch you an idea. John and Jane Shepard were orphans raised on the streets of one of Earth's great megatropolises. From an early age, John and Jane had each other's back. Nothing could separate them, and nothing came in between the family. They would eventually escape the life of petty crime and underworld gangs by enlisting with the Alliance military when they turned 18. Wanting to be the best of the best, they each proved that they were indeed the best of the best. John and Jane Shepard both graduated from the Systems Alliance N7 Special Forces program with flying colors. John Shepard was the perfect soldier, who became the Paragon war hero who risked his life and single-handedly repelled the Batarian slavers on the planet Elysium during the Skillian Blitz. Through dedication and grit, John was rewarded with the Star of Terra for going above and beyond the call of duty and becoming widely regarded throughout the Alliance as a true hero. Then you have Jane Shepard, the ruthless renegade, who took part in the Alliance's retaliatory attack for what the Batarians did on Elysium. She was a cold, calculating, and brutal Vanguard biotic, but she got the job done. The Skillian Blitz earned both Shepards fame across the galaxy, and enough leeway to finally be stationed together aboard the prototype Alliance warship the SSV Normandy as executive officers under Captain David Anderson, a close friend and the one who initially convinced them both to join the Alliance in the first place. From here, it's pretty much Mass Effect 1, so I won't go in too depth to the narrative, but cover some major differentiations. Essentially, John touches the beacon and would eventually be granted the role of the first human Spectre. Jane, on the other hand, is granted command of the Normandy. From there, the two decide the best way to track down Saren is by dividing their resources. With the threat on Pharos growing more dire, John decides to take a small shuttle there with Rex, Garrus, and Ashley, leaving Jane to track down Dr. T'Soni with Tali and Kaidan. Pharos goes off without a hitch, and Liara is recruited with both squads meeting up before heading to Noveria. It's all virtually the same, but in the end, after a long debate between John and Jane, they essentially decide to let the Rachni Queen live, angering Jane and causing a divide between the twins. On Vermeer, after much debate, John talks Rex down despite Jane wanting to simply kill him for his disobedience. Ashley is sent with Kirrahe, Kaidan stays behind to plant the bomb, and John, Jane, and the rest of the squad do what they do in the game. When things start to get hot, the Shepards decide to save Ashley and Kirrahe's team, leaving Kaidan to sacrifice himself. After being grounded by the Council, John and Jane finally have time to work out their differences and discuss the loss of Kaidan. It's here Jane also confesses her interest in Liara, and the two hook up en route to the planet Ilos. Mass Effect 1 ends, and the Council is saved, and everything turns up Shepard. When we get to Mass Effect 2, John is sadly killed by the Collectors after they destroy the Normandy. Pissed off at the Alliance for not wanting to retaliate or investigate further, Jane leaves the Alliance and eventually joins Cerberus after they tell her they have a way of resurrecting her brother. Now, I'd love an entire season of just Jane and her Cerberus adventures during these 2 years between John's revival, but if not possible, Project Lazarus is a success and John meets the Elusive Man, Miranda, and Jacob. Not long after, he's reunited with his sister, Jane. Mass Effect 2 plays up practically the same, with John and Jane splitting the recruiting missions. John would also start a relationship with Jack during this season too, mostly because I feel like the Jack relationship above any other relationship would be a very interesting side plot to the story as John slowly melts her shell. It also adds a nice parallel for the Paragon Shepard to romance the quote-unquote renegade option. Also, if you want to know why I like Jack so much, go check out the character analysis I did on her. She's such a great and underrated character. Anyway, Mass Effect 2 finishes up with the suicide mission resulting in some major character deaths. I'm not sure who would die. I think maybe Jacob, Zaid, and Miranda would be a good call, but I don't know. I just feel like for the suicide mission to have deeper impact, there should be some serious character deaths. Anyway, John never trusted the Elusive Man and wants to destroy the Collector base against his and Jane's wishes. Jane has become a devout follower of Cerberus against the wishes of John and Liara. John and Jane fight with John coming out on top, knocking her out, blowing up the base, and escaping. When she wakes, she steals a shuttle and leaves John and the Normandy behind for Cerberus. Now we have Mass Effect 3, where it's basically the same, however, Kai Lang is not in the show. Instead, his role is replaced with Jane Shepard. Jane has totally drank the Cerberus Kool-Aid and has become their greatest weapon. Mass Effect 3 is basically the same, with Jane going totally against her brother, her girlfriend, and her former crew. She does everything Kai Lang does, and then some. Her presence really needs to be menacing, which sadly means some heads have to roll. Throughout this part of the show, Jane not only kills Thane, but Kirrahe, Bailey, Ashley, and critically injures Liara. Throughout the course of this season, Jane virtually becomes irredeemable. Despite Liara's pleading with Jane, she can't be changed even after Liara reveals she's pregnant with their daughter. Mass Effect 3 continues, and during the assault on Cerberus HQ, John and Liara plead with Jane once more, but nothing is getting through to her. John is left with no choice but to finally put her down. At the very last moment, John kills his sister, Jane. Building up Jane to essentially be a much more interesting Kai Lang would be insanely good and an insanely fresh new plot thread to watch play out. Over the course of who knows how many seasons, we'd eventually see Jane's descent into villainy. She'd start off as John's badass sister and Liara's lover, and over the course of the show, we'd watch her slowly break bad into a relentless Cerberus assassin. Watching Jane kill many people once close to her and John would have a much more gut-wrenching impact compared to what Kai Lang did in the game. I always felt that Kai Lang would have had a much more significant impact in Mass Effect 3 if we'd seen him in prior games, or if he was one of our old squad mates. That personal connection between Shepard and him was missing, and what's more personal than the twin sister of the main character? I feel if the Mass Effect show splits the character of Shepard between John and Jane, then we'd get so many new and fresh stories. They could explore the relationship between the twins, with Jane being jealous of John for all of his achievements. Or they could explore Jane's relationship with Liara, John's relationship with Jack, the friendship of the crew, and so much more. It's such a simple change that I feel could create such a fresh and unique take on the series that makes it different enough from the games to be fresh and unique, yet close enough to the games that it's not unrecognizable. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Am I crazy? Am I a genius? Do you have a better idea? Let me know in the comments. I have a few other Mass Effect videos on my channel, so if you guys are interested, go check them out. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, hope you all have a fantastic day. Take care.